The universe. It's filled with beauty, lined to the brim with the gentle glow of distant stars and colorful veils of gas. It all seems perfect, perhaps a little bit too much so. That's because it is. Deep in the shadows, objects so extreme, so unfathomable, they challenge our understanding of physics, matter, and the limits of destruction. These are 5 of the most terrifying real, named objects in space. This is beyond countdown. So sit back, grab a snack, and be grateful we don't live near any of these horrors. Number 5. HD 1897-33b, the Hell Planet. This attractively named gas giant is far more than meets the eye. This planet lies about 63 light-years from Earth in the constellation Vulpecula. At first glance, it would appear as a peaceful, vibrant world with a hue that gives it a very similar appearance to Earth. But this world is anything but ordinary. HD 1893b is deep cobalt blue, not because of oceans, but due to silicate particles in its atmosphere. Temperatures soar to over 1,000 degrees Celsius as it orbits distressfully close to the surface of its early K-type parent star, and has winds that scream across the planet at 5,400 miles per hour. But the most horrifying aspect is what those winds carry. Tiny shards of glass that rain sideways, which would absolutely annihilate anything in its path. It's a planet of molten skies and glass storms, where any notion of habitability is reduced to a nightmare, hidden under the illusion of serenity. But if you found that disturbing, just wait until you see the next objects on this video's list. This brings us to number 4, which is PSR 1257+12, the Dead System. After a supernova explosion, which is the death of a massive star, either a pulsar or black hole will be left behind as a remnant, depending on the progenitor's mass. In this case, PSR 1257+12 likely used to be a red supergiant that weighed in between 10 to 20 solar masses. It eventually collapsed in a spectacular explosion, leaving behind nothing but its core as a pulsar. But that's not where the story ends. You see, after such an energetic event like a supernova, mass is blasted out in all directions. But this time it was different. Some of the ejected matter remained near the dead star's core, and was enough to begin forming a protoplanetary disk around the pulsar. After many years, it all mended together and, yep, you guessed it, formed planets around the somber, dead blue remnant. The idea of these worlds is absolutely horrifying. Picture a dark, forgotten planet risen from the materials that used to compose a now dead star. Survival on one of them is impossible. They are frigid, as they lack the thermal radiation from a normal star. They also have no atmosphere, as the powerful radiation of the pulsar simply strips anything that even starts to form. As a result, they are left as barren lands, lit by the dim blue haze of a former supergiant star's ghost. And if you found that insane, just wait until you see the next one. It involves an even crazier imminent supernova. And with that, we're at number 3, which is the hypergiant star named R136A1, Uncertain Chaos. Lurking in the Large Magellantic Cloud, a nearby dwarf galaxy, this beast is a truly horrifying existence. It weighs over 300 times more than our own sun does, which is already in a somewhat intermediate weight class. It is a special type of blue hypergiant star, called a Wolf-Rayet, characterized by severe surface instability and enormous radiation. But the truly spine-chilling factor lies within its uncertain fate, which can either be quiet and peaceful, or become one of the most chaotic events in the local universe. There is no in-between. You see, there are several factors at play here that determine the death of such an extreme star. One possibility is that its core is too massive and dense to go supernova, causing it to directly collapse into a black hole with no explosion. This is called a failed nova, and is the most likely scenario when this beast meets its end. But if conditions are right, its end could be a disaster. If it dies with a high rotation, it could avoid implosion and instead explode into an extreme version of a supernova called a hypernova, possibly accompanied by a gamma-ray burst that shoots through the poles of the star. This kind of event is so energetic it can possibly be seen across billions of light-years with the naked eye. Such gamma-ray bursts have been seen before, including GRB 080319b, which was visible in the night sky for a few seconds, despite being 7.5 billion light-years away. Now, imagine such an event occurring directly in a neighboring galaxy. It would be blinding and catastrophic, potentially causing damage to Earth's atmosphere, despite its distance. Fortunately, this is a very unlikely, but not impossible situation. Now, if you found this massive star horrifying, strap in, because the size of this next one is even more extreme. This brings us to our next object ranking at number 2, which is TON 618, the distant Goliath. As has been observed, most major galaxies contain a central supermassive black hole, most commonly between 1 to 100 million solar masses. But when we turn the telescopes to TON 618, an extremely distant giant elliptical galaxy standing at 18 billion light-years away, we notice something odd. When we calculated the mass of its central black hole, we got 66 billion. But surely that must be a mistake. That weighs more than some entire galaxies. But to everyone's horror, we made more observations and it wasn't. It is really that massive, and is explosively shredding everything around it in a phenomena called a quasar, creating an extreme amount of energy. That's what allowed us to see it from across the entire universe, its absurd output of light. It single-handedly outshines our own Milky Way by a factor of 1,000, which is already a large and very bright major galaxy. But here's what stands out the most with TON 618. Scientists don't know why it exists. It shouldn't exist. It makes no sense how a black hole can become so frighteningly gargantuan. It just sits far away as an enormous, mysterious, deep dark pit of nothing, making it one of the most horrifying objects in this universe. And if you're not keen on bottomless dark voids, this last one will have you shaking in your seat. This leads us to the awaited number 1, which is the Buddhist void, the great nothing. Intergalactic space, as its name suggests, is filled with galaxies in all directions. But clearly, the density of galaxies will fluctuate across different regions of the universe. Some areas are clustered tightly with many massive galaxies, while others have only few loosely scattered around. But what if I told you that there was a corner of the universe that was almost completely absent of anything? No galaxies, no stars, no gas, no nothing. Not just contained in a small segment of space, but spanning across hundreds of millions of light-years. Well, that's the Buddhist void, a place you would never want to visit, being a whopping 330 million light-years wide. There are a mere 60 galaxies that are known to exist within this enormous space, all scattered and isolated from one another. If you were to stand in the middle of this void, light is so minimal, you probably wouldn't even be able to see your own hand in front of you. If you're lucky, you might see the dim glow of one of the isolated dwarf galaxies. That is, only if it's near enough. Otherwise, you would see nothing but the pitch black of darkness, without a single detectable source of energy for unimaginable distances. No known place could be less lifeless than this. Thus, the sheer barrenness of the Buddhist void makes it the most horrifying thing to exist in this universe, beating out even the most massive stars and black holes on this list. And that concludes this video. But wait, there's only one thing that's scarier than any of these objects combined. That unpressed subscribe and like button. Quick, change it now.